Dr. Alex Turner was a kind and quiet man who loved books and science. He lived a simple life in a small town on Earth. Every day, he went to work at the research center, where he studied new ideas and helped solve small problems. Alex was happy with his quiet life, until one bright morning when everything changed. That day, a letter arrived for him. It was a formal letter from the government. With trembling hands, Alex opened it and read the strange words. The letter said that he was chosen to travel to a faraway planet called Saloon. On Saloon lived an alien race known for their wisdom and gentle ways. More importantly, the letter explained that the peace between Earth and Saloon was in danger. A great conflict was coming, and only a very special union could stop it. The solution was unexpected. Alex was asked to marry Princess Lyris, the leader of Saloon. The marriage was not for love, but a political promise. It was a sham marriage, a deal to end the growing conflict between the two worlds. Alex felt his heart pound as he thought about his simple life. He had never imagined that he, an ordinary man, would be chosen for such an important task. Despite his worries, Alex knew he had a duty. He accepted the letter, and soon he found himself preparing for a long journey to an unknown world. He packed his few belongings and said goodbye to the familiar streets of his town. With each step towards the spaceship, he wondered what kind of life awaited him on Saloon. On the spaceship, Alex looked out of the window as the Earth became smaller and smaller. He thought about the people he left behind and the life he used to know. The mission was clear, yet his heart was full of doubts and fears. He wondered if he could really make a difference in a place so far from home. The spaceship hummed with soft music and the voices of others who were on their own journeys. In that moment, Alex felt both lonely and brave. When the spaceship finally landed, Alex saw a world very different from Earth. The sky was a soft shade of purple, and the air felt fresh and cool. He was greeted by a group of Saloonian officials who led him to the grand palace of Princess Lyris. The palace was a place of beauty and calm, filled with bright colors and gentle music. There, waiting for him, was Princess Lyris. She had kind eyes and a warm smile, yet her look was serious as she understood the weight of the situation. Alex's heart raced as he stepped into this new world. He did not know what the future held, but he understood that his life had taken a turn that he could never have imagined. As he faced Princess Lyris, he realized that this sham marriage was his first step into a larger, uncertain destiny, one that could bring peace to two very different worlds. News of the sham marriage spread quickly across two very different worlds. On Earth, leaders gathered in large meeting rooms filled with worried faces. They knew that the peace between humans and the people of Saloon was very fragile. Every decision mattered, and the whole galaxy seemed to be watching. In these meetings, diplomats discussed the best ways to keep everyone safe and calm. They believed that even a simple, honest man like Dr. Alex Turner could be the key to a lasting peace. Alex, who had never imagined being at the center of such important talks, now felt the weight of responsibility. In the human government's busy halls, voices rose and fell as officials debated ideas. Some worried that if the treaty failed, old conflicts might flare up again. Others believed that the Union was the best hope to avoid disaster. Even though Alex did not seek power or fame, his gentle nature and clear thinking were seen as a bridge between two very different cultures. On the distant planet Saloon, the mood was no less tense. Princess Lyris, the graceful and determined ruler, listened carefully to her counsel. Her advisors met in grand, softly lit rooms that shimmered with shades of purple. They discussed the same worries as their human counterparts. Many Saloonians had suffered from past conflicts, and the memory of hard times made them anxious. Yet, in the midst of these discussions, there was also hope. Lyris believed that by joining with Alex in marriage, even if only for political reasons, a new beginning could be forged for both peoples. The princess took time to meet with ordinary Saloonians. In quiet garden rooms, under the gentle hum of strange wind chimes, Lyris spoke with elders and families. They shared their hopes for a peaceful future and their fears of returning to a troubled past. Her sincere words and calm presence reassured them. Even if the marriage was not born of love, it could still be a symbol of unity and promise. Alex, too, made an effort to learn about his new surroundings. In small gatherings arranged by Selunian officials, he listened to local stories and learned about ancient customs. He discovered that simple acts of kindness and understanding could ease fears. Every conversation taught him more about the values of this gentle people. He started to see that the promise of peace was not just a duty imposed on him, but a chance to help both sides heal old wounds. In both worlds, there were still doubts and whispers of fear. Some human leaders questioned whether a marriage without true love could really hold. A few Selunians worried that a human might not truly understand their ways. But slowly, through patient talks and everyday gestures, these worries began to ease. The shared hope of a brighter future pushed everyone to work together. Although the path ahead was uncertain, Alex and Lyrist took small steps each day toward understanding and unity. Their actions, filled with simple kindness and careful words, helped keep the fragile peace alive. In that delicate balance between fear and hope, every voice, every decision, and every shared smile brought both worlds closer to a lasting calm. The day of the ceremony had finally arrived. In a grand hall of the Selunian palace, guests from both Earth and Selune filled the room with quiet excitement and hope. The hall was decorated with a mix of human simplicity and alien beauty. White flowers and soft drapes, brought by the human guests, stood side by side with glowing crystals and shimmering fabrics native to Selune. The blend of these two cultures created a warm atmosphere that felt both welcoming and unique. Alex Turner stood near the entrance, his heart beating fast. He looked around, taking in every detail of the beautiful room. Although he felt nervous about the ceremony, he also felt a spark of curiosity about the customs of this distant world. Across the hall, Princess Lyris waited with calm determination. Dressed in a flowing gown that glowed like the stars of her night sky, she looked every bit the graceful leader her people admired. Her eyes met Alex's, and for a moment, they shared a silent understanding that this event was more than just a political union. It was the meeting of two different souls and traditions. As the ceremony began, a soft melody filled the hall. The music was a unique blend of a human hymn and a Selunian lullaby. This sound, gentle and harmonious, set the perfect tone for the ceremony. A wise elder from Selune stepped forward to lead the event, speaking in clear and simple words that everyone could understand. His voice resonated in the room as he explained that this union was meant to bring peace, understanding, and a new future for both worlds. Following the elder's words, another speaker from Earth took the stage. He shared stories of human resilience and hope, reminding everyone that the true strength of a people often lies in their kindness and willingness to learn from others. His words were gentle and sincere, and they helped to ease the worries of many who had come to see the union as a chance for a better tomorrow. Then came the moment of the exchange. In a carefully choreographed ritual, Alex and Lyris joined hands and recited promises of support, respect, and care. The words were simple but full of meaning. Each promise echoed in the hearts of all the guests, binding not only the couple but also their two peoples. The ceremony was filled with small moments of humor too. A slight mispronunciation of a Selunian word by one of the human speakers, and a warm smile shared between Alex and Lyris when that happened, reminding everyone that unity could be both serious and lighthearted. As the ceremony came to a close, the hall burst into gentle applause. The blending of two worlds in this beautiful ceremony gave everyone hope for a peaceful future. Even though the marriage was born out of duty, the ceremony showed that respect, understanding, and care could slowly bring hearts together. Alex and Lyris looked at each other with a new sense of connection, realizing that this day was not the end of their old lives, but the beginning of a shared journey toward a better tomorrow. Glowing patterns that moved like flowing water. Strange, floating lights illuminated the halls, casting a warm and peaceful glow. The air smelled different, like fresh rain mixed with a hint of something sweet and unfamiliar. Despite the beauty around him, Alex felt like an outsider. Everything here was new, and he did not know the customs, the rules, or even how to properly address the people he met. As he walked through the halls, alien servants and guards bowed slightly to him, their expressions unreadable. He gave an awkward nod in return, unsure of the right response. Princess Lyris led him to a large chamber that had been prepared for him. It was elegant and comfortable, filled with soft cushions and smooth, glass-like surfaces. The bed was large, covered in deep blue fabric that shimmered under the glowing ceiling. Everything in the room was made to provide comfort, yet Alex still felt like a guest in someone else's home. "You do not need to feel nervous," Lyris said, her voice calm and reassuring. "This is your home now." Alex forced a small smile. "It will take some time to feel like home." She nodded in understanding. "I know this is not the life you imagined. It is not what I imagined either." There was something in her voice, something softer than before. It wasn't just duty that kept her here. She, too, was adjusting to this new reality. In the days that followed, Alex tried to learn more about Saloon's customs. He observed how the palace workers interacted, how they greeted one another, and how they conducted their daily routines. He discovered that Saloonians did not shake hands like humans did. Instead, they placed a hand over their heart as a sign of respect. When Alex first tried this, a group of palace workers smiled in surprise, pleased that he was making an effort to understand their ways. Meanwhile, Lyris also tried to make things easier for him. She explained the traditions that might confuse him and even arranged for a human-style breakfast one morning, something that made Alex feel oddly comforted. Though it was a small gesture, it showed that she was not indifferent to his struggles. However, not everything was simple. Some Saloonians were still skeptical about the marriage. They whispered in the halls, wondering if a human could truly understand their ways. Some of the human officials who had traveled with Alex also questioned whether he could handle the pressure of living in a world so different from his own. But Alex was not someone who gave up easily. He knew he had a long journey ahead of him. And though this marriage had begun as a political agreement, he was determined to find his place in this new life, one step at a time. As days passed, Alex slowly adjusted to life on Saloon. He learned how to greet people properly, understood which foods were safe for him to eat, and even started recognizing the subtle facial expressions of the Saloonians. However, while he was making progress in small ways, there was still a wall between him and Princess Lyris. Their conversations were polite but distant. They spoke about official matters, meetings, diplomatic decisions, and the expectations placed on them. But there were no real personal talks, no laughter, and no warmth between them. It was clear that they were two people from different worlds, brought together by duty rather than choice. One evening, after another long day of ceremonies and discussions, Alex sat on the balcony of the palace. The sky above Saloon was a breathtaking swirl of blues and purples, with twin moons shining brightly. Despite the beauty around him, he felt restless, thinking of home. A voice came from behind him. Alex turned to see Lyris standing there. She wasn't dressed in her usual royal attire, but in something more casual, a flowing tunic with intricate designs woven into the fabric. She looked less like a princess and more like a person who was just as lost as he was. "A little," Alex admitted. "Everything here is amazing, but it still doesn't feel like my place." Lyris nodded. "I understand that feeling more than you think." Alex raised an eyebrow. "You do." She walked forward and leaned on the railing beside him. "As princess, I have always done what was expected of me. Every decision I make is for my people. This marriage was supposed to be another one of those decisions. A duty, nothing more." Her voice softened, "But I did not expect it to feel this strange." Alex looked at her, curious. "Strange how?" She hesitated before answering. "I thought I could ignore this connection, that I could treat you like just another diplomatic agreement. But every day, you try to learn about my world. You make an effort to understand my people, even when you don't have to. That is not something I expected." Alex smiled slightly. "I may not have chosen this life, but I'm here now. I might as well try to be more than just an outsider." For the first time, Lyris gave him a genuine smile, not one meant for the public, not one crafted for diplomacy, but a real, warm smile. "Then perhaps we are not so different after all," she said. The conversation was brief, but something had shifted between them. For the first time since the marriage, they were no longer just two strangers forced together by politics. There was an unspoken bond forming, one built not on duty, but on understanding. As they stood together, looking at the stars above, Alex realized that maybe, just maybe, this new life wasn't as impossible as he had first believed. In the days following their conversation on the balcony, something changed between Alex and Lyris. They still had their differences, but there was now a silent understanding between them. Instead of avoiding each other, they found themselves speaking more often, not just about political matters, but about small, everyday things. However, outside their private moments, the challenges of their union remained. The political tensions between humans and Selunians had not disappeared overnight. Many on both sides still doubted whether this sham marriage would bring real peace. One afternoon, Alex found himself attending a diplomatic meeting between human representatives and Selunian advisors. The meeting room was large, its walls covered in symbols of peace and unity, but the air inside was heavy with unspoken tension. An older Selunian diplomat with sharp, piercing eyes spoke first. "While we respect the efforts of this union, some of us question whether it is enough. Trust is not built in a day, and history cannot be rewritten so easily." A human ambassador nodded in agreement. "The same concern exists among our own people. They ask, what happens if this marriage fails? Will the peace we hope for collapse with it?" Alex shifted in his seat. He had expected this, but hearing it spoken so plainly made the situation feel even heavier. He glanced at Lyris, who remained calm and composed as she responded. "We never claimed that a marriage alone would solve everything," Lyris said firmly, "but it is a step in the right direction. Trust is built through action, through effort, not just words." Alex knew she was right. He took a deep breath and added, "If this treaty is going to work, we have to prove that we're willing to understand each other. I know I am still learning your ways, just as many of you are learning about humans. But if we refuse to even try, then what's the point of any of this?" The room fell silent for a moment. Then, an unexpected voice spoke up, a Selunian council member who had been quiet until now. "There may be a way to ease these concerns," she said. "An event, something where both humans and Selunians can interact, not just as diplomats, but as individuals. If the people see this union as more than just words, perhaps they will begin to believe in its purpose." Lyris turned to Alex, considering the idea. "A cultural exchange." Alex nodded slowly. "That could work. If we show them that our worlds can share more than just politics, it might make a difference." The ambassadors murmured amongst themselves, some nodding in approval. It was a small step, but it was progress. As the meeting ended, Alex walked beside Lyris through the palace halls. "You handled that well," he said. She smirked. "So did you." For the first time, Alex felt like he wasn't just surviving in this world. He was helping shape it. The preparations for the cultural exchange event began immediately. The palace buzzed with activity as both humans and Selunians worked together to organize a grand gathering. It was meant to showcase the best of both worlds: human music, Selunian art, earth cuisine, and ancient Selunian storytelling traditions. The hope was that this event would bridge the gap between the two civilizations, proving that they could live together in harmony. Despite the progress, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was still off. Lyris, who had always been strong and composed, seemed different lately. She attended meetings and spoke with confidence, but when they were alone, she was quieter than usual, lost in thought. One evening, after a long day of preparations, Alex found Lyris standing alone in one of the palace's vast gardens. The glow of Selûne's twin moons cast a soft light over her face, but her expression was troubled. "You okay?" Alex asked, stepping beside her. Lyris hesitated before speaking. "Do you think this will work?" He frowned. "The event?" "No. Everything," she admitted. "This treaty, this marriage, this idea of peace. Sometimes I wonder if we're just pretending, hoping for something that will never truly happen." Alex was surprised by her honesty. Lyris was always so sure of herself, always the leader who had everything under control. But tonight, she looked almost vulnerable. He sighed. "I don't know. I've asked myself the same thing more times than I can count." Lyris turned to him, curiosity in her eyes. "And what answer do you find?" He thought for a moment. "That I don't need to have all the answers. I just have to try." She let out a small laugh, shaking her head. "That is a very human way of thinking." Alex smirked. "I'll take that as a compliment." For a while, they stood in comfortable silence, looking up at the stars. Then Lyris spoke again, her voice quieter. "I was raised to put my people first, to be strong, to never show weakness. But lately, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing anymore." Alex looked at her, really looked at her. He had seen her as a princess, a leader, a diplomat. But now, for the first time, he saw her as a person, someone carrying the weight of an entire civilization on her shoulders. "You're doing more than most would ever dare to," he said. "You care. That's what makes you a good leader." She met his gaze, something unreadable in her expression. Then, to his surprise, she gave him a small, genuine smile. "You're not what I expected, Alex Turner." He chuckled. "Neither are you, Princess Lyris." For the first time, it felt like they weren't just partners in a political agreement. They were two people, trying to find their place in an uncertain future, together. The cultural exchange event was finally here. The grand hall of the Selûnian palace was filled with people from both worlds, humans and Selûnians, diplomats and ordinary citizens, all gathered to witness something new. Laughter and chatter filled the air as different cultures blended together in a way that had never been seen before. Alex watched from the sidelines as humans tasted Selûnian delicacies, their faces lighting up with surprise. The success of the cultural exchange event had created a wave of hope across both worlds. For the first time, humans and Selûnians were not just allies on paper, but were truly beginning to understand each other. However, peace was a fragile thing, and not everyone was happy about this union. Late one evening, Alex was walking through the palace gardens, enjoying the quiet. The air was cool, the twin moons casting soft silver light over the stone paths. He had been thinking about his conversation with Lyris, about his uncertain future, when a shadow moved in the distance. Before he could react, a voice came from behind him. "You do not belong here, human." Alex turned slowly and saw a Selûnian man standing a few feet away. His dark robes marked him as a noble, but his sharp eyes held suspicion and resentment. Alex remained calm. "And who are you?" The man stepped closer. "I am someone who does not believe in this performance of peace." His tone was cold. "You think a simple marriage can erase centuries of distrust." Alex sighed. He had expected resistance, but now he was face to face with it. "I never claimed it would be easy," he said. "But if we don't try, nothing will ever change." The noble scoffed. "You are naive. You will never truly be one of us." Before Alex could reply, another voice cut through the night. "Enough." Princess Lyris stepped forward, her presence commanding. Her gaze locked onto the noble, and her tone was firm. "Alex is my husband. He is part of this world now, whether you accept it or not." The noble hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "Your Highness, I only." Lyris raised a hand, silencing him. "Peace is not built on empty words, but on trust." Alex has earned my trust. If you cannot accept that, then you are the one who does not belong in this new world we are building." The noble clenched his jaw, but said nothing. After a moment, he turned and disappeared into the shadows. Alex exhaled, shaking his head. That went well. Lyris turned to him, her expression softening. "Are you all right?" He nodded. "Yeah, I've faced worse." But he had a point. Lyris frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean he's not the only one who feels this way," Alex said. "There are humans who don't trust Selunians, just like there are Selunians who don't trust humans." He looked at her. "What if we never change their minds?" Lyris held his gaze. "Then we keep trying." A small smile tugged at Alex's lips. "That's a very human way of thinking." Lyris smirked. "Then maybe you're rubbing off on me." For the first time, Alex felt like he truly belonged. The future was uncertain, but he wasn't facing it alone. He had Lyris by his side, and together they would prove that peace was worth fighting for. The palace was quiet in the early morning light. Alex stood on the grand balcony, looking over the vast city of Selûne. The once distant alien world now felt strangely familiar. The streets below were filled with life. Humans and Selûnians walking side by side, merchants exchanging goods, children laughing as they played. It was a sight he never thought he would see when he first arrived. Lyris joined him, standing close. "You're thinking about staying, aren't you?" she asked softly. Alex sighed. "A few months ago, I would have laughed at the idea. But now, I don't know where else I belong." Lyris watched him carefully. "You don't have to decide right away." He turned to face her. "But you don't want me to leave, do you?" She hesitated for only a moment before shaking her head. "No, I don't." A comfortable silence stretched between them. This marriage had begun as nothing more than a political agreement, a symbol of peace. But somewhere along the way, it had turned into something more. It was no longer about duty alone. It was about understanding, about trust. "You're not just a symbol to me anymore, Alex," Lyris admitted. "You are my partner." Alex smiled. "And you're mine." Just then, a palace messenger arrived. "Your Highness, the ambassadors have gathered. They are waiting for you." Lyris nodded, then glanced at Alex. "Shall we?" He hesitated, then smiled. "Yeah, let's do this." They walked side by side into the grand hall, where leaders from both worlds waited. Alex had never considered himself a politician, but now he understood. Real change wasn't made through force. It was made through persistence, through small steps forward, through people willing to listen and learn. As they took their seats, Alex spoke first. "We've come a long way, but the work isn't done yet. This treaty, this alliance, it's just the beginning." Lyris nodded. "We must continue to build trust, not just between our governments, but between our people. We will lead by example." The room filled with murmurs of agreement. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, it felt full of possibilities. As the meeting continued, Alex caught Lyris looking at him. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes held something new, something real. This was no longer a sham marriage. It was something else entirely. A partnership, a friendship, and maybe, just maybe, something even more.